Again. Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to the channel. This is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. Apparently, we never went live at all. So now we're just doing this all over again. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you definitely should not. And we are starting our weekly roundup. I won't go to the extent again, but we're starting our weekly roundup with the quote of the week. I never dreamt about success. I worked for it, said Estee Lauder. Now, obviously, most of you would agree with me that if you will only dream about success, then that will just remain a dream. I mean, it's never going to come to any fruition. So you got to work for it. I know this is not a motivational session, and we're not going to go into giving you any motivational talks and all, but when you are pursuing your Canadian immigration journey, it gets stressful, it's full of anxiety, so many changes, and not only that, it sort of sometimes pushes you to a point where you don't want to consider this journey anymore because it might just not be in your favor anymore. So the idea is that you're going to work for it, right? When I say about work for it, I'm going to give you one analogy. And I know this is not your motivational thing, but it might help some of you. And if it helps even one person, it will help. So for example, you go to an airport and your phone battery dies, okay? And you got to charge your phone. So what do? You take out your phone charger and you put it in the plug on the wall and you want to charge your phone. But then you realize the phone is not charging. So what would you do? Would you just leave your phone and your charger and wait for it to start charging? Would you do that? Or would you sort of find why the phone is not charging? Is the pin or the socket working fine? Is your charger fine? Is the cable connected fine? Can you look for a different outlet where you can then plug in the charger and then get your phone to start charging? You will do things to make it happen. You would just not wait for it to start charging by itself just because you plugged it in. It's the same analogy with life. It's the same analogy, I would say, to an extent with Canadian immigration process. Sometimes a lot of us get disappointed, frustrated, upset, irritated, angry, anguished with the way things are not working in our favor. But if you just let them be and don't do anything about it, then nothing's going to happen. Nobody's going to come to your rescue out of the blues and sort of, hand you a ticket. You will have to do something about it. You will have to work for it. So starting with on that note, let me spare you any more of that. Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date on our various platforms and channels. Starting with the Pnp Draw, Ontario has been on an absolute roll. On September 27th, Ontario issued invitations to apply to 3 candidates from the foreign worker stream, but this was the Economic Mobility Pathways Project. So I know a lot of you are not excited about that one. Then the next day, on the 28th of September, Ontario issued invitations to apply, or rather notifications of interest, to 1,179 candidates through their human capital priority stream. The minimum score for this particular stream, human capital priorities tech draw, this was a score of 496 or higher. So people who had that kind of a CRS score, plus their primary knock code was one of the 6 tech knock codes, 0213, 2147, 2172, 2173, 2174, 2175. Then these individuals would receive their invitation, or rather notification of interest from Ontario. Then they have 45 days during which they have to complete their application to Ontario. Now, I know most of these individuals, if you have a score of 496, then you are waiting for express entry. Why would you want to spend another $1,500? But my recommendation is don't jump the gun and decline or sort of ignore the invitation or notification. You may as well wait. Hold your horses, wait. Because, this is express entry. This is Canadian immigration. Anything can happen. I mean, I can always give you the example of the 23rd of December 2020, when the last draw was at 468 in express entry, and the scores never sort of dropped below that, and neither did the express entry scores or other draws continue from there on, almost for a year and a half. So keep that in mind and hold your horses and wait. If you get the ITA, good, within the next 2 or 3 draws, or 2 draws probably. But if you don't get an ITA, then you may want to consider going this way, because as I say, bird in hand is better than the 2 in the bush. So that's the Ontario Human Capital Priorities draw. Then, as I said, Ontario was on a roll, and the following day, which was yesterday, 29th of October, Ontario issued invitations to apply to 1,340 candidates. Whew, it's a lot of invitations. And these were the candidates who have their profile in express entry under the skills trades category. Now, in order to be eligible for skills trades category, what you need is experience or work experience or certificate of qualification or job offer, but your work experience should be in the knock codes starting with 72, 73, 82 or 633. These are the major occupation codes or the groups under which your work experience should be. In order to eligible for the Ontario skills trade, you obviously need experience in these knock codes, which is starting with 72, 73, 82, 633. You should have work experience of at least 1 year within the last 2 years, and this work experience should be in Ontario. So this was obviously an incredible opportunity for people who are inside Canada, in Ontario, working in skills trade, and obviously have been waiting for the TR to PR stream, which obviously never came. And this opportunity is a great one because the lowest CRS score for this particular stream, which was drawn yesterday, was only 266. That's it, 266. So you can imagine IELTS, CLB5, knock code this, 1 year of work experience, even with a high school diploma, bang, you could have scored this. So that's how it is looking. And if you're in Canada, if you have work experience in a skills trade, please keep your eyes open for this particular stream. This is really incredible one. Then from there on, we have British Columbia. On September the 27th, they did conduct their draw. They invited 260 candidates. Now, for BCPNP, for people who do not know, you need a job offer from an employer in British Columbia. And they do have some very strict criteria and requirements around the around the job offer and the employer. So please check the eligibility of your employer and yourself before you get excited with BCPNP draws. But they have been regular. They have always been conducting their draws on time, and they obviously are a very popular stream as well. They invited people or other candidates under the tech draw. So tech invitations, 215, childcare, healthcare, and other priority occupations were also invited. And then Saskatchewan obviously jumped into the party as well. I mean, they were not to be the ones to be left out. And Saskatchewan has issued invitations to apply to 639 candidates. And this was done through the express entry stream and the OID stream. The score range obviously was very high. It was 81 for 81 for OID and 83 for express entry stream. Though I do hear that Saskatchewan has amended the scores and both the streams were 81, but I haven't seen an official confirmation of that. But that's the score range. Obviously, the score range was quite high, but they did include almost 80 to 90 knock codes in this particular draw, which basically means a lot of people who have been anxiously waiting because they have relatives, because they managed to get a job offer in Saskatchewan, would finally now be able to submit their application through this particular stream because they've got their invitation. Of course, the draws continue, and then the next one that I want to talk to you about was the express entry draw. Now, express entry draws, as you all know, was a very exciting one at this point of time because the scores continue to drop. This express entry draw was with 3,750 invitations. The minimum score, cutoff score was only 500. I mean, okay, this minimum cutoff score was 504. I'm saying only 504 for the reason because we have seen scary draws of 557s and 510s and all those kind of scores. So 504 definitely looks much better. And this also then gives us huge hope and expectation that the next draw, when it happens on the 12th of October, should ideally be with a score below 500. That's how it looks like. 3,750 invitations are issued in this draw, so we are expecting at least 4,000 to 4,000, anywhere between that. I would say 40 to 50, probably 4,500. I would be very happy to see 4,500 draw because that would basically mean that scores would be even lower at that point of time. So fingers crossed and hoping for the best, as we say. But the pool breakdown, as we can see on the screen, if you're on Instagram, obviously I can't show you the screen, but if you're on YouTube, you can see the screen. The scores between 501 to 600 on the 26th of September, 2 days before the draw, was 4,411. After you remove the number of people who have been invited, that number drops down to about 1,100 something. I don't remember the exact number. And with the way over a span of 2 weeks, the number of people who get added is also roughly 1,000. plus the number of nominations. So you are looking at this pool above 500 being in the range of 2,500-ish, plus, of course, the PNPs who get through. So about 3,000 or 3,200 is the number of profiles that possibly would be at the time of the next draw. And if they do conduct the draw with invitations of more than 4,000, which basically means they would then creep into the below 500 range, and there are only about 6,000 people between 491 and 500. So you would most certainly expect that the CRS score that would be drawn in the next express entry draw would be, in my opinion, within the range of 497-ish, 497, 498. I mean, that probably between 496 and 498 is what I would hope and expect that the draws do drop down to. So that is something to look forward to. In other news, Alberta has announced a new pathway. I'm not sure how many of you would be excited about this one, but this is the pathway whereby they would allow, or rather they would invite individuals, candidates who are working in Alberta and otherwise, who have a job offer from the religious institutions for the role of religious pastors, clerics, who are involved in religious teachings, who are, like, for example, pundits in temple, imams in mosques, as I said, pastors and clerics in other communities. So this, whoever serves the faith congregations, those would be eligible to apply. So if you are one of those individuals, then this is something that you may want to explore. Also, another good news for today is that effective today, 1st of October, Canada finally ends its COVID travel restrictions in its entirety. As of today, if you're traveling to Canada, there are no restrictions whatsoever. No vaccination, no providing a vaccination report, no ArriveCan app, no mandatory isolation, no nothing, not by land, not by air, not by sea, all gone, all finished, gone. That's it. So no more COVID restrictions anymore if you're traveling to Canada. Even you don't even have to mask. I mean, I know Air Canada and a lot of flights who are flying to Canada, you have to still put on masks. Effective today, no more masks, nothing on train, nothing on buses, nothing on flights. And even if you did enter Canada before the 1st of October, and for whatever reason you were asked to do mandatory testing, quarantine, isolation, well, then today you're free. Nothing from today onwards, even for travelers, if there were any restrictions, then all of them have ended today. You're free to do whatever you wish to do. There are no more COVID restrictions. So hurrah! After 2.5 years, we're finally free of this pandemic in whatever manner you might want to call it. Oh, well, that's basically the presentation for today, and that was the weekly roundup. Obviously, we have a few things to talk about, and obviously we will look at question and answers. So once again, as a reminder, if you're on Instagram, please hop on to our live stream on YouTube so that we can talk to you about your questions and answers. But before I do that, and there are a couple of things I do want to talk to you about. Again, it's my opinion. All right. Opinion basically means it's my own personal opinion based on my research. Please do not take any decisions based on whatever I am saying here on in terms of my opinion. I personally feel that there would be a bit of pause in the express entry draw. No, I do not have anything to back it up. There is absolutely no published announcements, nothing to back it up. But I feel, and in my opinion, there may be pause of at least one express entry draw, and that's a possibility. I hope it doesn't happen. And the reason why I'm saying, for example, already several provinces have or rather are planning to put a pause on their provincial nominee draws or the provincial program draws. And the reason for that is they all need to align their NOC system or their program system with the new NOC 2021, which will be launched, which will be implemented effective the 16th of November this year, 2022, which is about 45 days to be exact from today. Now, if that happens, obviously there are some system changes that needs to be made so that the program can be aligned in that manner, in that fashion. Now, there are certain, expectations in the sense like the next draw of express entry is expected on the 12th of October. The next after that is expected on the 26th of October. and the one after that, which is expected on the 9th of November. Now, that specific draw, the draw of the 9th of November, is the one I feel, again, my opinion, I hope and I pray it doesn't happen, and I hope IRCC has done a better job with their IT systems. And if they have, and I'll be so proud of that. I mean, it will be such a saving grace. But knowing IRCC the way they are, and knowing what they have done in the past, and when I'm saying in the past, that was in 2017, in the month of June 2017, when they introduced the new system changes, whereby they were giving additional points for siblings, additional points for French speakers. They did put a pause on 2 of their draws, which created the express entry scores to rise significantly, and from there on it obviously never dropped to the levels before that. So yeah, in my opinion, I feel that there may not be a draw on the 9th of November. Again, as I said, it's just pure speculation, pure personal opinion. Please do not make any decisions based on that. So that's what I want to say, in the sense, like, because they would have to align the systems. People would have to be given time to change their knock codes in the system. A lot of profiles would be expiring. A lot of profiles would have to be recreated. A lot of profiles would have to change their knock code to the new knock system, which would be implemented effective 16th of November. And therefore, that expectation. Now, whether it is the 9th November draw or the 23rd November draw, the 23rd November draw is after the implementation, which is on the 16th of November for the NOC 2021. So do they give people time to make those changes, and so that they could then be ready for the next draw? I'm not sure. So 9th of November or the 23rd of November, either of these 2 draws, in my opinion, may, I hope not, may be paused, because already, as I said, lots of provinces are considering, or rather are preparing and planning to pause their draws. I know British Columbia will be pausing their draws. I know Manitoba will be pausing their draws. I know Saskatchewan will be pausing their draws. Ontario hasn't announced, but they will also be looking to put a pause for some time so that they can realign and revamp their systems as per the new NOC 2021 tier system. So something to keep your eyes open for. Another thing I want to talk to you about was about the Bill C-19. Now, I think I'm one of those very few people who have been making so many videos, so much of noise about Bill C-19. And it has been all over the Canadian immigration screens, everywhere, whoever follows that. Now, we all know that earlier we were expecting Bill C-19 sometimes this year, because there was no clear news. And then IRCC, through some spokesperson, came and said they were looking to implement Bill C-19 towards early next year. Now, what does Bill C-19 mean? Bill C-19 basically has been a motion that was passed in the Parliament, and it has basically led to the changes in IRPA and IRPR, which allows the immigration minister, and by that IRCC, to conduct express entry draws as per their specific requirements of occupations, language skills, backgrounds, places of residence, where you wish to reside. They can practically choose any personal attribute from the express entry system, make a category of it, and then invite only those specific categories. So that is what Bill C-19 is about. Now, when the Bill C-19 does get implemented and the draws start happening as per the Bill C-19, we would see a drastic change on this, with the whole express entry as to how the draws are being conducted. That puts a lot of pressure on people who are not from those categories, but we do not know what those categories are. They haven't announced those categories. They would be announced sometimes earlier next year, when the new programs are going to be, or rather when they have decided on the categories, because they have to be done in consultation with other stakeholders as well. Now, people were anticipating that these categories would be announced and this Bill C-19 would be implemented by the month of January. That is not so, because I have a document here which shows that these would basically be towards the spring of 2023. Now, for people who have seen the 39-page document that was issued by IRCC as a document to support their strategies for permanent residence, or strategies towards permanent residence, and they basically announced the 5 pillars. Amongst this is this particular document, which talks about the Bill C-19 and giving the immigration minister the flexibility of conducting these draws. And here it says, and I will read it for you, the legislation requires that categories be linked to the attainment of an economic goal, that the minister consult with partners and stakeholders prior to establishing the category, and that the minister report on an annual basis to the parliament regarding the usage of these new authorities. Okay, the implementation of these new authorities will require changes to the IRCC's IT system, and the exact timing of implementation for this measure has yet to be determined. However, IRCC anticipates that these changes will come by the spring of 2023. They will be applicable to the suite of programs currently managed through Express Entry, which basically means that they are looking to make those changes with regards to Bill C-19 by spring of 2023. Now, spring, as I just checked last time, is apparently 21st or 20th of March 2023. That's where it starts. But given the fact of how these will be implemented, I am expecting between March and April as to when we can expect to see those changes, which basically then means then the Express Entry draws in their current format, the way they are, as an IRCC inviting the top ranking profiles, they will continue the way they are until at least March, best case April, maybe even May for that matter. And that would then give a lot of hope and promise to people who are at the scores of 480 and below. For people who have been keeping an eye on the Express Entry pool breakdowns, you would also then realize that there are roughly 20,000 people between 471 and 480. There are roughly 10,000 people. Am I saying this correct? Just let me just open up the... Okay, yes. So between 491 and 500, you have 6,000 people. Between 481 and 490, you have almost 9,500, so about 10,000 people. And between 471 and 480, you have roughly 20,000, so about 19,000 people. The total of this is approximately 35,000. So scores of 471 and above, you are sitting with about 35,000 people in the Express Entry pool at this point of time. And then there are also scores above 501. And then there are the nominations and the Pnp, people who get their nominations every week or every 2 weeks, and those get added as well. So you are dealing with a number of 39,000 people, also a dynamic pool, which basically means people keep getting added, people keep improving their scores or increasing their scores. So that is the number of people you're looking. If your scores are below 471, that's a humongous number, almost 38,000 people. Plus, keep in mind, people keep adding, people keep jumping into the pool, people keep upgrading their scores. International students keep completing their education and those points get added. International students who are earlier in Canada, they keep completing their period of 1 year work experience. Those 35 points keep getting added. More and more people keep getting nominations. Those 600 points get added. More and more people keep getting LMIAs and approvals for their LMIAs and work permits. Those 50 points keep getting added. People who are in Canada on ICT work permits, their 1 year work experience keeps getting completed. So they get 50 points for job offer and 35 points. So there are so many people who are currently in Canada who are transitioning to getting higher and a higher score, which basically means for people below 471 at this point of time, you better be looking for other options, because this Express Entry is not going to be in your favor unless, obviously, Bill C-19 comes into play, category-based draws start happening, and then obviously you are one of those individuals who are in a high-demand category based on your language skills, based on your education, based on your work experience, and then you have an invitation or you get an opportunity for the invitation. Other than that, it is looking extremely, extremely difficult. So that's for the scores below 471. Now, even with the scores of between 471 and 480, it's not an easy road at this point of time. It's quite uphill. If IRCC continues to draw out high number of invitations, so when I'm saying high number of invitations, they're already at 3,750. Let's say they go up to 4,250, 4,500, and God help us, if they go up to 5,000 and even more, then you're looking at draws clearing out big chunks of people in the Express Entry pool. But keep in mind, for the next year, which is the year of 2023, IRCC only has a quota of 75,000 people. Okay, so the draws that are happening right now and the draws that will happen in the first quarter or first 1.5 quarter of next year would be primarily targeting individuals who will possibly or prospectively become permanent residents within the year of 2023, okay, which is only 75,000 people. And the reason for that is because IRCC is working towards and anticipating to complete all the application handling and processing within the period of 6 months. So with that in mind, and the fact that they already have still about 20,000 people in the backlog with the federal high skilled, you can anticipate that they would be able to very easily clear their target and complete their quotas. Now, another update there on that end is also the anticipation and expectation of multi-year level plan, which would be announced end of this month, definitely before the 1st of November. So we are looking towards the end of this month, 30th of October, 31st of October. 30th, I think, is the Sunday. Yeah, 30th is Sunday. So either the 31st of October or 1st November, we expect the multi-year level plan, immigration plans to be announced. And I'm expecting to see a bit of a bump there. Some numbers probably would be added to certain quotas, certain categories, and that would again give us a bit of hope to see where the numbers might go up and expect more invitations. But this is by and large the generic picture of how it's looking like. People with 481s plus, you guys should be fine. Not this year for sure, but definitely next year. With the first 3 months, you guys should be able to clear out, because there are 9,000, 10,000 of you. 481 to 490, there is 10,000 people. 490 to 500, there is 6,000 people. That's 16,000 people, which basically means that many number of invitations have to be issued. Now, that can happen pretty quickly. If IRCC conducts 4 draws of 4,000 each, and these numbers get cleared out. But we have to wait and watch how many draws will be conducted and how many people keep getting added into the express entry pool. And that would change the whole cycle, because keep in mind, we are approaching December. That basically means December is the month where, again, a lot of people complete their studies in Canada, okay, because they would have started in the month of January. So the winter intake is when they would have started. They would have completed their programs either in August if they were doing an 8-month program, or they would complete it in December if they were doing their 8-month program plus co-op or 12-month program. So a lot of people will be completing their education. So basically means a bump in the scores for them as well. So January will see number of people in the pools going up in the terms of the 490s plus, the 500s plus, the 480s plus. And therefore, it's very difficult to speculate at what point of time will 480s be cleared out, because a lot depends on IRCC issuing the number of invitations as we are hoping and expecting. So that's basically all that I have to say. If you guys are still here, then, boop that like button, and let's see you subscribing to the channel as well. It's always good to see that happening. And now let's head over to the questions and see what all is going on there. Okay, so if you're on Instagram, I recommend you join us on the Facebook. Join us on the YouTube live, where we can then take a look at your questions as well. Okay, let's see this one. If there is only one draw in November, is there still hope for CRS 489 to get called in a December draw? It's possible. It's definitely possible, because I just discussed the pool breakdown. It shows 6,000 people with the score of 491. Okay, and we expect the scores to sort of touch 497, 498 in the next draw. Again, depends on the number of invitations that they will issue. But at some point of time, they're going to cap how many invitations. It's not going to be an increment of 500 every single draw. That's not going to be possible. So they're already at 3,750, which is the pre-pandemic levels. Now, for pre-pandemic levels, now, do they go to what they've been doing during the COVID draws as well? Would they go up to 4,200, 4,500 draws and probably go to 5,000? That is something we have to wait and watch. I am thinking 4,250, at most 4,500 is where they might sort of, hold back and then not issue more than that. But it's a possibility. And if that happens, for example, they issue 4,250 to 4,500 draws, 480s should ideally be keeping an eye out by the month of December, possibly the first or the second draw. And primarily only because you have to keep an eye on how many people are getting added into the pool with the scores more than 500, because people are still getting their Canadian experience points as well as job offer points for people who are able to get those. And also not to forget the number of people who do get nominations. Now, if you get the nomination, you're getting 600 points, and there hasn't been a lot of nominations being released. At some point of time, you will see a big chunk of those coming through as well, especially from Ontario. When that happens, then you will see a big bump in the number of people with nominations, and that would again put pressure on the scores as well. So something to keep an eye on. But yes, I would anticipate 489s to get called by December, all things being same or similar or as expected. Okay. Expected draw month for 470. I am not expecting 470 to be hit anytime in the near future. When I'm saying near future means next 6 months. I don't see it happening. At least next 4 to 5 months for sure. Don't see it happening. And after that, if Bill C-19 takes over, then it is only about whose occupation is in what specific draw. Will the cutoff score ever drop below 480? Well, that's what we have been discussing all this while. We do expect the cutoff to drop below 480, but that is possibly towards early part of next year, Feb, March. But again, you see, I mean, we can go on and speculating all as much as you want, and so many people just posting as to this score and that score and would this score be hit or not. And we can all speculate as much as we like. At the end of the day, IRCC is the one who will decide how many invitations they will issue. And with that, how many invitations is what is going to decide how quickly what level of scores can be reached. And of course, what we also never know, and we would never ever be able to put a number to that, is how many nominations get issued and how many people jump into the pool or improve their scores at a specific level. And with that happening, it's very difficult to sort of put an exact number to these things. Okay, somebody says, translation requirements are not clear. Does the original document need to be stamped if provided to a translator online? So the original document does not need to be stamped. What is required is from you is a translation, an affidavit from the translator, which says that he or she has translated from the original document, a copy of the original document, and fourth and most important is a certified copy of the original as well. So you need the original, without any stamp, scan of it, whatever, a certified copy of the original. So the original's copy and certified stamp, which basically states that the translator has translated from this document. So that's how he certifies it and says, okay, I've translated from this document. And then the translation, obviously, and then the affidavit from the translator. If the translator is not an authorized translator, if they're not registered authorized translator, then they need to provide an affidavit which states that that they can do the languages and they can translate, and that they have translated from the genuine or the original copy or the original document, and that's what they've provided to you. Dental assistants are now eligible in express entry. No, they are not eligible in express entry at this point of time. They would become eligible in express entry effective 16th of November when the new NOC tier system comes into play. And you would then be able to consider your work experience effective 16th of November onwards. So any past experience that you have, you would be eligible to claim points for it. But you can only do that. You can only make those changes effective 16th of November. We are all predicting CRS cutoff based on all program draw, but when CEC draw will start, do you think CRS will go down? I don't think there will be a CEC draws. And the reason why I don't think there will be a CEC draw is because take a look at the scores. They're all been draws of 500 plus. Who do you think these 500 plus scores are? So unless you are bilingual, which is you have English and French, and you have scored very high in French as well, and unless you have a job offer, you cannot be in the score of 500 plus. So majority of those people who are getting invited are CECs. So whether they call it CEC or they don't call it CEC, the people who are getting invitations right now are CEC. So they don't really have to do a CEC specific draw. That is what my opinion again. And I don't expect them to conduct a CEC specific draw. What they will be conducting would be the category based draws. Now in the category based draws, not only will they be inviting CECs or Canadian experience class, but they would put an extra or additional factor point, which would be occupation. So for example, if you are NOC code 2173 with 1 year of experience in Canada, then you get invited. Okay. If you are NOC code, I don't know, 1123, you speak French and you have 1 year of experience in Canada, you get invited, or this is the score. That is how they will probably, or rather, in my opinion, that is how they might look at drawing invitations, whereby they are already inviting people who have Canadian experience as well as They're also choosing specific occupations as per the labor market priorities. So I don't expect a generic CEC specific draw. If it happens, great. I mean, that would be really nice, but I don't expect it at this point of time. Standard processing SLA for LMI GSS is 2 weeks, irrespective of location applied from. How much delay is this? This is reasonable to appeal through mandamus. Well, probably 6 months later, because not only do you have to show it there has been a delay, you have to show that there is a considerable hardship that has been caused to you because of the delay in the application. But only an immigration lawyer can file a mandamus application, so you should be consulting a lawyer before you sort of take up this kind of an application. The internal memo earlier this year stated that the score will remain above 500 for the rest of the year. No. That internal memo did not say that the score will remain above 500. What it indicated is that even if they were to conduct the draws, and they would conduct the draws at a certain point, then the scores will continue to remain above 500 only for the reason because of the number of people in the pool and the number of people who keep getting into the pool with that level of score. So that's basically what that memo indicated. Lovepreet says, if your salary does not come under taxable slab, does filing nil income tax return along with other employment documents strengthen your applications? So this does not strengthen your application or weaken your application. If you are below the tax slab, then you are below the tax slab. Just provide bank statements that show salary. IRCC is not interested whether you paid taxes or not, whether you are above tax slab, below tax slab, whether it is strong application, weak application. IRCC is only interested in proof of remuneration that you got paid, so that they can establish your eligibility for your work experience, because one of the requirements for a work experience to be valid and eligible is that it was a paid experience, you were paid during that period of employment, and that is what they're looking for. Will FS draws continue after implementation of Bill C-19? Great question. Yes, in my opinion, I feel that they would continue with a certain numbers of all program draw. And where am I? And there is a document to talk about this as well. Let's see if I can find it. Where did we go? Hold on. Just give me one moment. We'll find that document, because they are aware that they would need to be looking at those numbers as well. So let's see if I can bring this. Oh, I can't. Hold on. Because in this specific document, which was again the strategies to PR document that was released by IRCC, 39 pages, there is only one area. So these 39 pages that was released by IRCC, this whole document is only indicating how people in Canada will be eligible, or rather will be able to get their permanent residence through different processes, through different pathways and programs. But there is only one area where it indicates that they would need. Now, this, you see the one in the red in the end here, it says in addition to the 39 pages and all the talks about different programs and pathways for people who are inside Canada to become permanent resident, they're saying it is important that Canada continues to offer some pathways to attract those diverse skills, backgrounds, and talent among those globally who may wish to immigrate to Canada without previous Canadian work or study experience. Now, I would hate to break this to you guys, right? But this only one small paragraph of 3 lines in the entire big document of 39 pages indicates about offering for people who are outside Canada with zero connection, with zero work experience, with zero education in Canada. And it says that they have to offer some pathways. Now, it's not very encouraging when you read something like this, where it says only some pathways. Means, yeah, as we progress, as we move forward, as we go into the new year, you will see that the concentration is more on people who are inside Canada versus outside Canada. So to answer your question, where you say that will the FS draws continue, in my expectations, they will continue. But what would happen is that the large, for example, in one draw, they decide to invite 4,000 people. Out of 4,000 people, the 3,000 or 3,500 or 2,750 would go towards Bill C-19 categories. people who are inside Canada, people who have specific work experience, people who have specific language skills, people who are living or intend to live in certain parts of Canada because they have certain language skills. Most of the invitations, or the chunk of the quotas of the invitations, will go to them. And then the remaining, let's say 1,000 remaining, they would then do an all program draw and issue those invitations to that. To those people who are in the all program draw. Now, can you then you have to keep in mind that with only less number of invitations to an all program draw with such a big pool, it basically means the scores are going to skyrocket and they will remain very, very high. Again, my opinion, I'm just reading between the lines based on what I am seeing, but the document is in front of you. That is what indicates what IRCC think tank is planning or doing. This document is available for anybody to download. This is called the Strategies to Permanent Residence document, which was just recently issued. It's 39 pages. And the small one in red, is the only area where they talk about pathways for people outside Canada with no connection to Canada. So I know it's not at all heartening to see what they're talking about, but at the same time, it's important to know which way this is heading, so you can then realign your pathways, realign your journey, realign your objectives and goals so that you can still achieve what you wish to achieve. Okay, plenty of questions coming through. Vishnu, thank you for the super chat. Can I travel to India for 2 months after AOR? Passport will have new pages with stamps that were blank before AOR. Once you have submitted your PR application, you are free to travel wherever you want to travel. There is nothing to update anybody. There is nothing to provide anything. There is no PCCs to get. There is no new passport stamps to upload. You're free to go wherever you want to go. You're free to do whatever you want to do. Applying to IRCC or applying for your PR application does not mean you have signed a bond that you will not be able to do X, Y, and Z. That is an application you have submitted, which will continue to be in process, and you're still free to do whatever you wish to do. For someone who has worked in 3 different NOCs, restaurant supervisor, mechanical technologist, and now in graphics, which one should be the primary NOC? Well, there are 2 ways to look at it. First is your primary NOC should be in which you have the longest period of continuous work experience within the last 10 years, because you get eligibility points for that period of work. However, if you do not need that many eligibility points because your spouse also has completed their language skills scores, so they have IELTS as well, for which you get 5 points. So you now can fiddle around a bit with your primary NOC code. Then you choose the NOC code based on what has the highest prospect of you being invited for a PNP program. And obviously you need to have at least 1 year of work experience in that NOC, continuous work experience, especially if you're outside Canada. For inside Canada, 1 year continuous experience is not a requirement, but if you're outside Canada, this is how you will choose your primary NOC code. Okay. We are all predicting. Okay, this we just answered, right? Can you please make a video on latest PNP changes from EOI submission perspective? Well, we don't make videos based on EOI submission perspective. At the end of the day, each province has a different program. Some of the provinces have an expression of interest requirement. For example, Ontario for their specific streams. For example, Saskatchewan for OID and express entry streams. There is no specific videos to make. These are PNP programs. They have their program requirements and criteria. If you are eligible in their expression of interest stream, then you file your expression of interest and wait for the draw to happen. Before how many days, hours of Wednesday do they lock the EE profile? I'm planning to make my score 500 plus before the next draw. Not sure if I have time until Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, good question. As long as your express entry profile is active in the pool just before the draw takes place. So the draw, and there is always the date announced by when, okay, let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on. IRCC will always announce the time that they have conducted the draw, okay? And when they conduct the draw, that time is announced. And if you have created your express entry profile before that period, let's see that. Then you would be included in that draw, okay? And I'm just gonna pull this up so you can see this as well. Okay, that's the page for express entry draws. Let's make this a bit bigger. In this express entry draw, which was the last draw, it happened, as you can see, on the 28th of September at 13:52:35 UTC. This was the date and time of that specific draw. The last draw which happened, draw number 232 on the 28th of September, it was conducted at 13:52:35 UTC, which is roughly 9:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Toronto time. Okay. So if your profile was active in the express entry pool before this date and time, then you would be included in the draw. Okay. All right. Why is express entry PNP processing time different from express entry CEC? I was under the impression after you get PNP, it should still have 6 months processing timeline. Well, express entry processing times are same or similar. Just because it's a CEC or a PNP, it does not matter. At this point of time, or rather earlier, they were processing CEC applications faster because those individuals were inside Canada. That allowed them to complete the validation or verification of their work experience faster. And the requirement of PCC was also not there because of the fact that they did not need the local police clearance in Canada, and that helped them process those applications faster. Now, if you are a PNP, PNP is not a program stream in express entry. Okay, even if you get a nomination, you are still either a Canadian experience class or a federal skilled worker or federal skilled trade category. These are the only 3 programs that are there in express entry. So PNP is not a different stream. Even if you're a PNP but a CEC, you could see a CEC stream processing time. If you're a PNP and a federal skilled worker, you could see that kind of processing time. But at this point of time, as far as IRCC is concerned, generically, whether you are CEC or PNP or FSW, they are looking to process the applications on an average processing time of 6 months and below. And from the way what I am seeing with a lot of our clients, I think they are on schedule of maintaining and managing their 6 months processing time on an average. Any changes in business immigration startup visa? Good question. No, there are no changes, nothing at this point of time. On the contrary, the startup visa processing, the startup visa assessment has become stricter because places like UAE, Dubai and all, they are hub of fraudulent activities as far as startup visas are concerned, where lots of agents, consultants, lawyers who are sitting in Dubai are offering packages of $45,000, and they mix up 5 different people who do not know each other, and they put them all in the same application and they file their application under startup visa. IRCC has been able to identify a lot of these fraudulent applications. They are coming down quite heavily, but that is also taking a toll on the processing. At this point of time, startup visa could very easily go 3 years plus on the processing. So if you're looking to apply for startup, please do not fall into the trap of these kind of agents and consultants and lawyers who are sitting in Dubai and elsewhere who are offering you this deal, package deal of $45,000, $50,000, $55,000 to submit your startup visa application in combination with somebody else who you don't even know. There is a possibility of an interview happening. There is a possibility of peer-to-peer review happening. And in such cases, this would lead into some very serious issues. Not only will the application be refused, if it's identified that one of you has committed misrepresentation, then there is a ban applicable for people who are involved. So bear that in mind. And as far as otherwise business immigration is concerned, one very good program that people do not pay attention to is the C11 and C12. These are the intercompany transfers and people who will self-employed individuals who can set up their businesses in Canada. Those categories you should look at. If you're able to set up your business in Canada, you are able to transfer yourself as the executive owner of the business into Canada, you can be eligible to claim 200 points at a later date because you have your work permit approved and you can work in Canada for 1 year. After 1 year, you'll be able to claim points. But those options are available and they're happening all the time. And those are so much more prospective and faster and better than the entrepreneur immigration projects or entrepreneur immigration programs offered by the provinces, where first you file an expression of interest, you submit an application, you get approved, you get a work permit, you come to Canada, you set up the business, you get audited, you get nominated, you apply for PR. Process times could very easily go between 4 to 6 years in some cases, sometimes more. And that is after you having spent all that money and continuing to spend all the money because obviously you have shown your interest to be in that province versus coming to Canada on an ICT as an executive person, executive member of your company and transferring yourself. So different options available, but it's all happening. No changes at this point of time. Should I have proof of funds before I submit my scores, or should I wait and get the cash, submit my scores, and wait for invitations? Try to answer what stage I should have 13,000. Well, proof of funds is the money you should have for your settlement in Canada. So the sooner you have it, the better it is. So it's not about should I get cash, should I not get cash, should I put it in the bank, should I not put it in the bank. Whenever you think you will be ready to submit your application, you should have the money. Now, the question arises, especially for express entry, is that if the funds have appeared into your account within the last 6 months, and that is where the problem happens, then you will need to prove to IRCC that the funds belong to you, that they have not been borrowed, they're unencumbered, you did not take it as a loan, you're not taking a hand loan, somebody is not giving it to you just to show it in your account, and you will now need to prove this money belongs to you. So therefore, the gift deeds people take from their parents or their siblings, or they sell their cars or some assets, the golds, etc., and then they show that this is the money where it came from. But that is where the criteria is. The criteria is not about the fact of when should you start preparing. You should start preparing whenever you're ready. The money is only going to be yours. It will only help you at a later date. So that is what you should be looking at. There is a target of 75,000. Just wanted to note till how many people have already got ITA and what is the number of invitations left. So the target of 75,000 is not for the number of invitations. Okay, that is a wrong notion that people have. The quota of 75,000 is for the number of people who will become permanent residents under the FHS, Federal High Skilled Program. Under the Federal High Skilled Program comes express entry, and each ITA that you're looking at, each ITA could have multiple applicants. For example, if the ITA is received by an individual who has a spouse and 2 children, now you have 4 people who will be coming to Canada as permanent residents, and that number of 4 would get deducted for 75,000 to achieve that quota, not 1 as an ITA. So you need to have that clarity. ITAs is not a quota. The number of people who come to Canada is the quota. Whenever IRCC issues ITAs, they also expect, and they know, a lot of people decline the ITA. A lot of people get rejected in the R10 when their applications are not complete. A lot of people applications get refused as well during the course of the time. So those also need to be accounted for. Several people in most cases decline their ITAs for ridiculous and frivolous reasons because somebody tells them to do it. That basically means it's a loss of an ITA, it's a loss of a position, somebody else who would have got it but didn't get it. So don't mix up ITAs and the number of people of 75,000, which is the quota for the year 2023. Which changes will happen to express entry next year, 2023? Well, I recommend you follow an YouTube channel called www.youtube.com/askkubeir. Follow our channel. There are plenty of videos. You can take a look at it. There are so many changes which are happening. Does 490 have a chance? Yes, they definitely have a chance. For sure, they're happening. What is the secret behind your energy? Do you follow some kind of special diet? secret of my energy is boost. Yeah. No, it's just that the subject of immigration excites me. This is something which I'm very passionate about. And whenever we talk about immigration, suddenly I go on full steam ahead. And that's what keeps me going as well. Please mention about the study visa refusal report of Delhi visa once you had shared, and what is the way forward. Oh, great one. Great one. I forgot about this completely. Thank you for reminding. Yes. So Will Tao, who's an immigration lawyer in British Columbia, he does a lot of ATIPs as an access to information and privacy notes so that he can get information from IRCC and other government departments as to what is happening in different areas of immigration or related. And one of the documents that he was able to achieve or rather obtain was a document which indicated the approval rate of study permit applications from different visa offices across the world. And one of them was New Delhi Visa Office. New Delhi Visa Office, over the span of 2018 until now, so there was the approval rates, and the approval rate from January of 2022 until June of 2022 for study permit applications in New Delhi Visa Office is a ridiculous 27.2%. That was the approval rate, which basically means 66.8% of the applications were refused. Now, okay, you know what? I have to go back to this document and I have to show you, no, not this document. Hold on. You see this document, which was recently shared by IRCC, the strategies to PR, it is a gold mine with regards to the amount of information that is available as to what IRCC is planning to do. Okay, and let me bring it back on the screen again. So this is the document, strategies to expand transitions to permanent residency. Now in this particular document, and I've just highlighted a few areas. Okay, this is the area. It is about international students. Yeah, there you go, international students. And here it says, despite growing in size, the international student population has become less diverse, okay, over the past 2 decades, with increased concentration in certain source countries, provinces of studies, and fields of study. That basically means they're already aware, they're already concerned that the number of students who are coming into Canada have now, the population has become less diverse, means you are seeing more of international students from only very few specific countries. Now, you know it and I know it. The countries that they're referring to here is India, China, Nigeria, Philippines, in some cases South Korea, and I think there is one more country which I'm forgetting. But by and large, you're getting the point, right? Mainly it's India and China. That is where majority, and of course Nigeria. That is where the majority of students are coming from. And they are saying IRCC is exploring strategies to diversify the source countries for Canada's international student program, as well as ways to incentivize students to look beyond major urban centers when choosing a program study. It's all there. I am not saying it. It's in the document itself, where they are talking about the fact that they are looking at strategies to basically diversify the student population. Now, I would hate to say it, but then there has been increase in the number of incidents that the international students have gotten involved in, whether it was hate crimes, whether it was activities of violence, whether it was activities of vandalism, whether it is activities of unnecessary creating I don't know what the best way, what is the best way of doing, but let's say unacceptable situations a lot of international students have been getting into. It's happening in Toronto GTA, it is happening in Greater Vancouver area. It's been seen in a lot of areas that certain segments of populations are creating issues, student populations, and therefore and the fact that there are certain source countries, as I said, India, China, Nigeria, Philippines, South Korea. Students of certain countries are also being seen as concentrated effort, or there's a lot of concentration of certain nationalities, so they're looking to diversify. Now, is refusing the applications in large number one way of strategizing? Is, I don't know. There's also another thing, is that a lot of international students or their agents or their consultants or their lawyers have been submitting fraudulent documents in their applications. It's a known fact. Fake bank statements, fake educational documents, fake work experience, fake IELTS scores. It's a known fact. The going rate for CLB 9, fake IELTS CLB 9, is 25 lakh rupees. That's a going rate. Okay. And it is happening. It's rampant. It's happening with the big institutions and centers in India as well. IRCC is aware. They will clamp down as and how they can clamp down. A lot of people go to the agents and they don't disclose that they have been using a representative, which by itself is a misrepresentation. And the agents in India don't think that the students will get caught because, hey, they will just use a different email ID. IRCC has been tracking IP addresses. IRCC has been tracking the MAC IDs. IRCC also uses a very good level of artificial intelligence, which can very easily pick up similarities in the SOPs that students use. So when you use an SOP from a so-called SOP writer, or the agent is using an SOP, what they do is a template format. They change the name of the college, name of the program, and some cosmetic changes, and they give it to you. Okay, but the AI tools that IRCC is using is able to pick out these similarities. They're able to pick out the IP addresses, MAC ID, the credit card from which these payments are being made, and they're able to identify that this are being done by some sort of agents who are otherwise unauthorized to practice, and therefore more and more refusals are coming. The agents are not going to accept that it is their fault. Okay, and this is what and how things are looking. And as you move forward, the best idea would be either use a licensed and an authorized representative to handle your application, or handle it yourself. You don't need any consultant. You don't need any lawyer to handle your application. Handle it yourself. Do it yourself. So much of information is available. Write your own SOP. Don't pay money to write SOPs. Write your own SOP, prepare your own application. If you have a good application, you have good ties to your home country, you have a good reason to wanting to come to study in Canada, you will see your application will get approved. Okay, so that is what you need to be aware of and how you will proceed. Okay, what happens with the PGWP if the passport expires in the second year of master's study in Canada? Does it affect PGWP situation? Okay, it's a confusing question, because if you are still studying, then PGWP is not the criteria. If you're still studying, means you're on a study permit. And if you haven't completed your studies, then the postgraduate work permit, that there is no question for a postgraduate work permit. So you should be more concerned about your passport to get renewed, so you have a valid study permit. And if your study permit is expiring, your passport is expiring. So renew your passport, apply for the extension of study permit, continue studying. Once you complete a period of your study, then apply for postgraduate work permit. That is how it will be. Okay, last few questions before I scoot off. Oh, I'm losing some questions here. Hold on. Pratik Patel, thank you for the super chat. My studies is completing in December 2022. Study permit is valid till September 23. Can I go to India and come back in 2 months and then apply for work permit? Yes, you can. There is no problem with that, as long as you have a valid TRV. Also, keep in mind, when you do return back, the border officer can always ask you the purpose of your stay in Canada. And if you've already completed your period of study and you're returning back, then you should be able to explain to the border officer that after your studies, you had taken a break, you're returning back, so that you can now apply for a work permit as you're eligible and then continue with your work. So that is how you should approach that. If I have LMIA, should I show funds in FSW draws? If you have an LMIA and if you have a valid job offer, then you do not need to show funds in for your proof of funds for your FSW application. Please answer. I got PR through Saskatchewan without express entry. As for how many days I will have to stay in Saskatchewan before I move out to other province, please answer. See now, Gaurav, you have received a nomination. Okay, and the reason you were given nomination is because you intended to reside in that province. If you wanted to leave the province, then this is considered as abuse of a process that is being, rather a provision or rather privilege that was given to you. I mean, think about if you were Saskatchewan and you were giving out nomination with the belief and intention that somebody is saying that they will want to come and live in province, but what they want to do is get out of your province at the earliest because they've just used you to come to Canada. But to answer your question, there is no specific time requirement that you have to stay in a province. You can leave at any point of time you wish to. The Charter of Rights and Freedom protects you. However, because you have expressed your intention to live and reside in that province at any point of time, you can always be questioned, why did you leave the province? Were you genuinely wanting to reside, or were you committing misrepresentation? There have been a lot of cases where people have been asked for them to prove their genuineness of their intent of having, or rather wanting to reside in the province after they have left the province very quickly. And if it was established they were misrepresenting, then their nomination can be revoked and their PR from there on can also be cancelled. But it's a possibility. So please, if you are choosing to leave the province, you should have very good reasons and evidence to support, and the fact that you genuinely made an effort and attempt to reside in the province in the first place. You know, these things make it more difficult for people who really want to live in the province and use the province and the PNP programs, because then provinces start looking at everybody with an eye of suspicion. Mitesh, thank you for the super chat. I'm a CEC candidate at 456, eligible for 18 months extension. What program should I target for PR? If no CEC specific draw, you should be targeting at a PNP program. For sure, you should be looking at identifying an employer who can support your application for nomination for any PNP program. If you're in Ontario, find an employer who can support you and is eligible for a PNP program. If you're in a different province, find an employer who will be able to support your application in that PNP. So while CEC, while Bill C-19 and those aspects continue to be a prospect, you should have a big and a great backup plan, and that would be through the PNP. And most PNPs, you would need a job offer, and that would be the requirement. And therefore, you should be concentrating and working on how to get a job offer from an employer at the earliest. Okay, last question. I'm on work permit and my wife is on a visit visa. We have applied for extension and decision has not come. Can she travel to India and come back? well, she can travel in and out of Canada as long as she has a valid TRV or a temporary residence visa. That will be the way she can return back to Canada. And yeah, she can return back to Canada. There is no problem with that. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining in. It was nice catching again. If you're still here, then please do like the video, share the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel. That is always going to be good. And we shall do this again very soon, obviously next week, unless there is some big change that happens earlier, and then we'll do another one for that. So thank you so much for joining in. It was nice. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you next time.